Newborn mammals are entirely dependent on their moms. Baby koalas and howler monkeys hold on for dear life, while mom gives them everything they need. But soon enough, mom, and sometimes dad, passes on the skills their offspring need to survive on their own. It's cozy here, and this baby clearly likes this spot. Who wouldn't? This is Reg. He's a 7-month-old koala, wrapped in his mother's arms, living the good life at Caversham Wildlife Park in Perth, Australia. Reg leads a life that's a bit out of the ordinary. Koalas are known to be solitary and temperamental as adults in the wild, but in the zoo, these animals are a tight-knit clan, joined at the hip.
They're very clingy, they share mum sometimes, they interact by playing in the trees together. Sometimes you'll see 2 or 3 young joeys on the one mother, while the other ones are off grooming.
Koalas are often referred to as koala bears. We can thank 18th century settlers in Australia for that. They were struck by the koala's bear-like appearance. It was an honest mistake. But they're actually marsupials, with the trademark pouches to carry their young. Joeys are very attached to their mums. Reg is at the age where he's just starting to explore. Like other koalas, he'll live his life in eucalyptus trees.
He's pretty outgoing at the moment. He's just learning to climb and be independent slowly of his mother. He'll still be with his mother for another 3 to 4 months until he actually ventures off full-time from her.
For the time being, Reg is still mostly nursing on his mother's milk for nourishment. He'll continue to nurse until he's about a year old. But he has also started to eat eucalyptus leaves. The leaves are the mainstay of the koala diet, even though they're highly toxic. How do koalas eat them without being poisoned? It's because koalas have a long gut with special bacteria that can metabolize the toxins. As adults, koalas can eat up to 1 kilogram of leaves a day. That's impressive compared to their body weight, which can be anywhere between 7 and 11 kilograms. Digesting all those leaves takes energy, so koalas are slow-moving and sedentary, sleeping up to 22 hours a day. To prepare for a full-time eucalyptus diet, Reg will have to eat a special form of his mom's poop. It's called pap. When Reg makes the switch from milk to leaves, the pap will give him the special gut bacteria needed to digest tough eucalyptus leaves. Now that is an interesting rite of passage. If Reg were in the wild, he'd learn to fend for himself in a few months' time.
The joey would actually leave the mother at 12 months and probably never see her again, especially if they're a young male. They get sent away from the group. It's a life of a solitary koala. They would have to face the possibility, if they're a male, of extending their food range to find their own location where other males are not going to pick on them. And as a female, finding a group of koalas that would accept her into the area that they could share.
In the wild, young koalas have some important steps to take before they're ready to venture out on their own.
So they'd have to be totally weaned. They'd have to locate different species of their food trees, and then they have to cross from tree to tree on the ground. So they have to learn the survival skills of when to do it, from protection from other animals.
For now, Reg and his mates at the zoo are getting stronger.
The joeys have learned already wonderful climbing skills. They've built their forearm muscles, their leg muscles, They've learned their balance and stance, and that's already a very strong climbing animal.
Eat, sleep, practice a little climbing, and repeat. With plenty of cuddle time with Mom.
The cutest thing that the Joeys do, I would say, is snuggle. If ever a keeper comes into an enclosure, they love to get on you, have a little climb and a snuggle. It's so cute.
It's summer in the Scottish Highlands, and nature is in full bloom. The grass and heather aren't the only things having a growth spurt. Animals too, including some that haven't been seen in these parts for thousands of years. Now that they're here, it's hard to miss them. The antlers are a bit of a giveaway. Moose are back in the British Isles, where they're known as European elk.
In the UK, there's only 6 places that actually have European elk. Back in 2009, we had the first calf born in the British Isles in nearly 1,000 years.
It's a comeback tale. And you're looking at the newest chapter. Twins, born at the Highland Wildlife Park near Aviemore, Scotland. The species, which once roamed the forest here, has been extinct in the British Isles since about 900 AD. But they're still found in Scandinavia and northern Russia. European elk were brought back to the UK in 2007. So far, they've settled in well at the park. The birth of twins doubled the park's population in one fell swoop. This is Dad, Bob, and this is Cass, their mother. Formerly the only 2 European elk in the preserve. Moose calves are heavily dependent on their mother for the first year of their life. In fact, these 2 are most often by Cass's side.
The female's called Siri and the wee male's called Ari. They're really confident. They follow Mum and Dad all around the enclosure.
Ari is relatively wee compared to Siri. He was born small but healthy. Now he's starting to gain on his sister. The calves sport orange fur. That will change as they grow older and as the weather turns cold. For now, they're enjoying summer and an endless supply of leaves delivered to their feet. Moose are browsers, and the park provides them with a steady diet of willow, rowan, and birch, with side orders of heather and, in winter, pine needles. As babies, the most important part of their diet is Mum's milk. But they don't have long to enjoy it. Cass will be weaning them by summer's end. They're growing by leaps and bounds. And boy, can they bound! In their first week of life, baby moose can outrun humans. Right now, they're usually making a beeline for Mum.
She's very good, she's very attentive. She knows where the safe places are to take the calves away from the public eye if she wants them to go off show for a bit.
Dad keeps an eye on his family. At 8 years of age, Bob is mature in every sense. It's a tight family unit for the time being.
He's very kind to the females. He doesn't chase them, he's not too bossy. So the calves are not only learning from Mum, but they're also learning from Dad as they're developing.
Whatever they're doing and wherever they are, this family communicates well, with body language and with vocals.
It's a lot of little noises that are reassuring noises, but they're also move over, you're in my space, eating my food noises, and they're kind of like, ooh, 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 those sort of noises.
In the wild, food is just one thing these calves would have to compete for. A good mate would be another. That's where antlers come in. All Ari has right now are 2 little bumps. They'll stay small for the first year. As he develops, he'll look more like his dad. First, he'll grow some facial hair. This beard is called a bell. And then he'll start growing his proper antlers. And, like all male moose, he'll have to grow a full set every year.
At the beginning of the year, the stags will have these amazing set of antlers. Around about March time, they'll cast them, and it's almost like a little bit like having a wobbly tooth. They'll be wobbly one day, and then they'll just fall off one day, and it doesn't hurt them.
Then they start growing new antlers, sprouting an inch each day. That requires a phenomenal amount of energy. The soft fur on these antlers is where that energy comes from. It's called velvet, and it supplies blood to keep antlers growing. Every August, that blood supply is cut off, the velvet dries up, and the antlers become hard, ready to fight with.
It's all about having the best antlers, being the strongest bull you can to win the best girls and to win as many girls as what you can.
Several months have passed. Bob's mating is done for the season. Cold weather has set in. He's standing by his family.
In the wild now, the male wouldn't be with them, he would be off, but at the minute he's still quite happy to be around the female and the youngsters, and they'll get on very well.
The calves are 6 months older and bolder. They've had a good summer fattening up and have shed their orange fur.
And then coming into the winter, it'll go into sort of a dark brown, a few flecks of grey through it as well. But they've both put the sort of the weight on, the nice bulk to keep them warm during our winters up here.
By next summer, Siri and Ari will be moving to other reserves throughout the UK, so they have just a few months to learn as much as they can from Mum.
They'll be watching her where she goes for the best food and which food is going to be better for them, where the streams are for her to drink from. They'll still be picking up a lot from her until they leave the park and go on to new homes.
They're still young, but Siri and Ari will play a role in restoring the European elk population to their ancient stomping grounds. In the animal world, Asian small-clawed otters could be poster animals for the saying, all for one and one for all. Sticking together. That's the secret of their survival. These pint-sized otters are the smallest of the 13 species of otters found around the world. And when they're born, they are absolutely minuscule. 3 months ago at the Dudley Zoo near Birmingham, England, Mother Otter Kia and Father Buddy had a litter of 4 pups. At that time, the tiny blind pups weighed only 50 grams each. Now they're big enough to survey their territory with Mum and Dad. Kia and Buddy already have the foundation for strong family ties.
They'll stay together forever. They'll produce roughly about 2 litters every single year, so it's quite a lot of offspring that she produce. As their offspring are growing up, they'll stay with them, so they stay as a big family unit.
These babies will be ready to have pups of their own by the time they're 2 or 3. Until that time, Mum keeps the pups in line.
The mother is very, very protective of her babies. She'll attack anything that comes near them, to the point where they're a bit overprotective.
Kia is definitely watchful, but she can also be pretty friendly.
They do a lot of kissing. They'll groom each other for bonding. They'll share food.
Well, they'll share most of the time.
On some occasions, you may see mother otters or an adult parent take a fish from a baby, and just because they're teaching it a lesson that it needs to work for its own food.
Not sharing offers a bit of a reality check.
It's not always going to be provided, because if the babies think the adult's going to bring us the food, they're never going to start foraging, they're never going to start to learn.
Meals at the zoo are scattered everywhere to encourage foraging. Today's meal is fish and is hidden, where else?
We put a lot of it in the water, encourage them to go into the water, because in the wild, that's where they find a lot of their food.
Those short claws help them find and hold on to a good meal.
They get that name because of their nails. They don't actually protrude further than their toes. This gives them dexterity, and they're able to feel for their food, such as mollusks and crustaceans.
Although they spend more time on land than any other otter species, these little ones are ideally suited to an aquatic life.
Otters are perfectly adapted for water life, from their eyes to their tails. And when they're swimming, they're actually using their legs, their feet, and almost doing like a doggy paddle. Their hands are actually webbed.
Kia and her family like to cement their family bond in many ways, as do all Asian small-clawed otters.
Otters communicate a lot of time with different types of vocalisations, roughly 12 to 13, which they're doing through their mouths. It sounds a lot like high-pitched squeals at different tones.
Each call has a distinct meaning. Anything from alarm to distress to a friendly hello. But they don't just rely on sound. They rely on smell as well. And the family that smells together stays together.
They'll actually scent mark a lot of stuff. They've got a special gland on the underside of their tail. So when they're excreting faeces and fecal matter, which is called spraint, they'll actually attach this scent to their poo. They'll all produce the same scent, and if any intruders were coming in and scenting, they'll all know that that was the intruder.
Talk about closing ranks on outsiders. They have other defense strategies too. In their native habitat in Asia, they prefer the protection of mangroves, swamps, and murky waterways. Otter families hide away in dens known as holts. They're often found along muddy riverbanks. And life in the zoo doesn't dampen that instinct.
Otters will naturally use these as protection and areas to sleep in. They're often found underground, and they'll take nest materials such as plants. That's where they're safe from predators, and that's where they'll rear litters, keep their babies, and most of the time, that's where they keep safe.
Whether it's a burrow underground in the wild or a little wooden house at the zoo, at the end of the day, there's no place like home. The residents of the Santa Ana Zoo in Santa Ana, California, are used to this sound. It's not an alarm clock, although it can be pretty alarming if you don't know what it is. It's the sound of a troop of black howler monkeys doing what comes naturally. This is Greta, one of several howlers that live here. She has a 6-week-old baby, but it's very hard to spot. Like most primates at that age, it's stuck to mom 24/7. So the zoo hasn't been able to get close enough to find out if it's a boy or a girl.
Initially, they're clutched onto mom all the time, and they ride on mom, and then as they get older, they start exploring, and slowly they start extending the distance from mom.
If a newborn weren't enough to manage, Greta also has a 2-year-old son, Blake. And she has a 10-month-old daughter, Charlie. These siblings keep the troop occupied. And heading up this troop is Thaddeus. He's the only black howler monkey in this troop who's actually black. The females and youngsters of the species are golden brown. Even howlers that don't share the same mother get along, so it's become a family affair.
This troop of howler monkeys in our zoo are very, very close-knit. The dad has 2 wives, so to speak, and all the little kids, and they all get along, they all hang around with each other all the time. And there's obviously a dominance and discipline that occurs between all the adults and then between the siblings, the young siblings and the older siblings. But it's just like one big happy family.
The slow pace of life is similar in the zoo as it would be in the wild for black howler monkeys. 13 species of howlers live in the forests of Central and South America. Black howlers live in groups of 5 to 20 monkeys. The key difference is that these monkeys are endangered in the wild and safe here. In the wild, adolescent males and females eventually leave or get kicked out of their troops and join new ones. For Blake and Charlie, that means moving to another zoo. But for now, they're happy playing and spending time with this bunch. Charlie's tail helps her antics. She's a natural-born swinger, as are all howlers. These tails are prehensile, and it means they can use them like another arm. They're very sensitive and strong, handy for carrying things, for balance, or just hanging around. They can be as long as a monkey's body, so when Charlie grows to full size, that will be about 1 meter of body and another meter of tail. Charlie and Blake certainly seem to have monkeying about figured out.
They definitely show normal behaviors of monkeys climbing around trees and playing and getting into trouble like normal little kids do.
Although they're still learning.
They're just not as skilled, so they don't tend to jump as far and do as many of the gymnastics that you see the adults do.
The monkeys are skilled at finding food. Although howlers are mostly leaf eaters in the wild, the zoo gives them foods like kale and other vegetables. Mama digs for the good stuff, sweet carrots at the bottom of the bin. When Charlie's not monkeying around, she's taking it easy. Howler monkeys can spend as much as 80% of their day resting. That's because their bodies are designed to eat leaves, which have little nutrition, and digesting them takes a lot of energy. So, even though Charlie and her troop get other foods at the zoo, she's just doing what she was meant to do. Even she needs to rest occasionally. And what about that howling? Howler monkeys are the loudest land animal in the world. That sound can carry for almost 5 kilometers.
Howler monkeys can project their voice. They actually have pouches and a very large larynx. Their lower part of their neck inflates, and they can resonate the sounds in there and then project them.
In the wild, the howling happens early in the morning and at night. It's how the monkeys stake out territory and warn competitors. But in the zoo, Charlie's family doesn't have any rival neighbors, so the calls happen a little less frequently. And while the howls sound sad or angry, this tight-knit family is thriving. That's great news for an animal that's endangered in the wild. Mammal mums and dads want to give their babies a good start in life. But parents can only do so much. Eventually, their offspring learn what it takes to fend for themselves and make their own way.
If you're going to be a predator, you have to be able to hunt. Carnivores like lions, cheetahs, foxes, and coyotes have to learn somewhere. Those skills begin as play for these little hunters, yearning to grow up to be like mom and dad. The vicious, ferocious, mighty lion. These 3 cubs don't exactly live up to their species' reputation.
Like all cats, they're super playful when they're little. They're happy-go-lucky. They have no worries in life. They have the protection of their parent, so they're with their mother all the time. So they don't have that aggression yet. They're not serious yet.
The joys of being at the top of the food chain. When lion cubs are born, they're blind and can't even walk. Compare that to a typical prey animal like the gazelle and zebra, where babies can run as fast as adults within 24 hours of being born. But that doesn't mean that survival is easy. Far from it. The lioness has the very tough job of keeping her cubs alive. She keeps them hidden and safe in a den until they can walk and see. Eagles, leopards, and even buffalo will try and kill the cubs if they get a chance. At around 6 weeks old, their mom introduces them to the rest of the pride. She does this slowly because any new males in the pride might try and get rid of their competition's offspring. These 3 cubs live in a zoo, so their father didn't have to fight off other big males. But their dad, Cheetah, wasn't warm and fuzzy with them either.
Cheetah's relationship with the cubs is a little different. He's not fully embraced fatherhood yet, but he's coming around. It took him a little while to get used to these cubs. He was terrified of them. They would touch him and he would scream like they were killing him, but he's slowly getting over that, and these cubs just love him. They have no fear of them. You know, these 60-pound guys, and he's a 500-pound lion. They run headlong up to him and will throw themselves against his body, and Cheetah will scoop them up, and he likes to open his mouth over their belly, and you think he's trying to eat them, but he's actually playing.
In the wild, the females in the pride will synchronize births so that the cubs are born at the same time. It's not just having a friend to play with, it's another way to help them survive. Smaller cubs are usually starved out by bigger cubs. In the wild, this is when they'd venture out on their own to start a new family. The males are massive and have intimidating manes, but the female lions are the better hunters. They're smaller and slight in the hips and legs, but with extra bulk in their necks, all traits that are already popping up in this young female cub.
She's got a very strong personality. She likes to stomp right up and spit at us and growl at us, and that's exactly the personality of the 2 adult females we have. The 2 male cubs are much mellower. They like to come up and see us, but they're not as spitting and growling as the little female is, and they're more curious.
So whether it's by their parents, their siblings, or other animals, life isn't always easy for a lion cub. In the wild, they have an 80% chance of dying before they reach the age of 2. In captivity, that number is much smaller, which might be why these lion cubs aren't worried about looking tough and ferocious. They're just having too much fun. It would be a mistake to confuse these little guys for puppy dogs. They are their wild cousins, baby coyotes. Full grown, they will stand roughly a third the size of a gray wolf, and potentially just as deadly and cunning a predator.
We had 4 babies this spring, so they are growing up really quickly, and we can see already their fur is changing color.
Soon, their reddish coats will turn gray, just like their parents, the alpha male and female in the pack. Within the coyote hierarchy, only they are allowed to breed.
So it's always the best individuals that have the babies to make sure that the babies are really good new coyotes in the pack also.
The main job for the pup's mother is to feed and take care of her new litter, truly a full-time job. To make sure she keeps up her energy, the other members in the pack all pitch in.
Each member of the pack take care of her, and she's always really well fed.
And then there's the pup's father, the undisputed leader of the pack and the family.
So the role of the alpha male is similar to the role as the alpha female. He'll always take care of all the babies in the litter, and also really has the rules in the pack and really direct the pack.
But at this point, all that matters to this pup is cutting loose and having some fun.
The Coyote pups are really cute and funny. They're always playing around, and we see them like running from one side of the enclosure to the other, and also playing with the full-grown coyotes. It's really life is easy and just for fun.
Very heavy on the easy. Dad is becoming less a caregiver and more of a teacher, slowly preparing them for the brutal life of a hunter.
These pups will need to learn, if they were in the wild, to hunt. It's quite a big thing to learn to survive well, and also to know where to find food and where to go, where to not go, and life in the forest.
Within the pack, the pups need to learn their rightful place and proper social behavior.
Sometimes the parents always need to do a little bit of discipline on their pups. They just need to learn to act correctly with the rest of the pack so that they don't get pushed away, or just make sure that they go along all together.
Once this pup learns to be a full-fledged hunter, it will primarily target small animals, which make up 90% of its diet. Its hunting grounds will range from roughly 3 square kilometers to 40 square kilometers, depending on food availability. To learn to work as a group, these pups need to learn basic communication skills. Even during playtime, their parents are teaching them how to express themselves through making noises and by using body language, tactile signals, and smells. As an adult, this pup may at some point decide to leave the safety of the pack. If it does, its chance of surviving will automatically drop by as much as 25%. But in the wild, under the care of the pack, it might live to see its 14th birthday. While other species like wolves have dropped in numbers, these pups belong to a population on the rise. While they once lived primarily in prairies and deserts, their range has expanded to forests and mountains. And now, as forests shrink, their territory continues to expand into cities. No matter where they live, these pups will do well because they will have learned from their parents how to be opportunistic and will eat just about anything. Over the next few months, these pups will learn valuable lessons to protect them from those who would do them harm, making them not only a skilled predator, but also the ultimate survivor. These baby cheetahs were born just 6 months ago. This is their mom Messa's 3rd litter. But for whatever reason, she's abandoned these guys, refusing to take care of them.
With cheetahs, sometimes mums aren't always that great. They sometimes are lacking a bit of maternal instinct, and they do actually abandon them quite often. And unfortunately, that's what happened with this litter.
In the wild, a mother who has weak or sick babies usually abandons them for a good reason.
You don't want a weak cubs that are bringing other predators towards the den. They can smell it.
But these cubs are quite healthy. All 3 are brothers, with very different personalities. Matata is the little troublemaker.
He definitely tries to push all the boundaries when he gets the chance.
Kanzi is the fearless explorer, always the first one out to see what's going on. He's the definite leader of the group.
The others actually rely on him quite a bit, so when they get a bit worried or scared, they turn to Kanzi and they stick with him for a bit of comfort and support.
Gorse is the affectionate one, the real sweetheart of the group.
He's very affectionate, he loves cuddles. He gets jealous if anyone else is getting too many cuddles. He comes over and tries to butt in and sit on your lap, and he's a very lovable cub.
When all three were first born, they looked very different. Their eyes were closed tight so they couldn't see. Their ears were folded back so they couldn't hear. All they had to go by was their keen sense of smell. Gradually, after a week or so, they started taking their first steps, learning how to use their tail for balance.
Watching them sort of learn how to coordinate their tail and all the feet and everything takes quite a bit of time, and it's quite funny to watch.
When they finally reach adulthood, their tail will measure as much as 80 centimeters, roughly half their total body size.
Of course, like climbing on things and then realising that the tail will actually help them balance is pretty neat to watch that little light bulb go off, and gradually they start using it a bit more.
With each new lesson learned, the cubs continue gaining confidence, which is important if you're going to be an apex predator.
So they've gone from pretty much not being able to move to what they are now, like bounding around and can run faster than what we can run and that kind of thing.
When they reach full size, these baby cheetahs will be able to run nearly 104 kilometers an hour. The secret to their speed is in their claws and their spine. The brothers were born with semi-retractable claws that they use for gripping the ground at high speed. To help propel them forward, their spine compresses and stretches like a spring. The cubs are bursting with energy. Normally at this age, their mom Mesa would be teaching them how to hunt. But since she's turned her back on them, their natural instincts have kicked in, and they're learning on their own.
It's all play, but it's all preparing them for when they had to survive by themselves and hunt and catch their own food.
In the wild, Matata, Kanzi, and Gorse would feed on Thompson's gazelle and smaller prey like guinea fowl and wild rabbits.
Even chasing after a leaf, that's teaching them something, how to hone their skills, learn how to chase after things and ambush and things like that.
Amongst themselves, their play is definitely on the rough side.
Especially first thing in the morning when I first go in, they're always hurtling around the enclosure at top speed and chasing each other and tripping each other up.
Which, in the wild, is exactly what they do if they're chasing a baby springbok or some other choice prey. They trip it up, jump on it, and then rip out its throat.
They learn from such a young age, so that's probably the most important development stage that they're going through now, is learning how to survive, basically.
They will also soon start to sort out who is at the top of the pecking order.
Definitely, I imagine Matata is going to be at the bottom, just by what I've seen with his personality, but who knows, it might change. As they get older, the personalities always change.
In the wild, as a species, Matata, Kanzi, and Gorse would be classified as vulnerable, one step away from being endangered. Underpopulation has forced massive inbreeding.
As a result, every cheetah today is related somehow, and so if you have a lot of animals in a species related, it means that you've got a lot of issues with the immune system, so pretty much a disease could just wipe out a whole population of cheetah so easily.
In the future, these three guys, or their cubs, could help keep the species alive.
It's really important to breed these species like cheetah in a captive environment because if something does happen out in the wild, which with cheetah quite feasibly it could, a disease could knock out a whole area of cheetah and you might lose them for good. So it's really important we do have a population here that we are constantly breeding in a sustainable way. So what we're trying to do in a captive environment is to breed a group of cheetah that are really strong, robust, and we're trying to outbreed that in breeding. So if something does happen, we can actually introduce cheetah back into the wild and they will actually survive.
And in the wilds of Africa, Matata, Kanzi, and Gorse would be able to tap into the vital lessons they've learned on their way to becoming the world's fastest predator. The silver fox has a fierce, independent spirit. This female, for example, has gone against Mother Nature about the right time to reproduce. Foxes aren't supposed to have babies until they're about 2, but Franny, well, she had other ideas.
Franny is the silver fox mother. She's a great mother. She didn't read the page in the book that said foxes aren't supposed to reproduce in their first year. So we were a little worried about her, this being her first litter, and she is young, but she's being a really good mom. She cares for the kids really well. They're all very healthy. She seems to mitigate any family squabbles that go down, so she's a good mom.
The female will mate with several different males, but only one gets to become her long-term partner. In this case, Franny has settled down with Frisco. Franny and Frisco are brand new parents. A silver fox litter is usually between 3 and 6 kits, but it can be as large as 14.
There are 4 silver fox kits. They're 4 weeks old. They're all brothers. They each right now weigh about 1 pound, 2 pounds. Their names are Fee, Fi, Fo, and Fum, all Fs. And they love playing around their enclosure. They love bugging their parents. And they're generally pretty active, but during the afternoon, they all curl up in their den and have a nice nap.
Franny and Frisco have different parenting styles. As the mother, Franny is in the trenches with her kits, breaking up fights and making sure everyone's playing nicely together. She's hands-on and very involved. She's a young mother, but she's a natural. Frisco tends to keep more to the sidelines. He's not quite as involved, but he's constantly on the lookout for any threats to his kits. In the wild, coyotes and wolves are known for snatching baby foxes. But these kits are safe here in the zoo. At this age, they're rambunctious, full of energy, and ridiculously cute.
When it's feeding time, they all pile in at once and try and get some food, so they're all tumbling all over each other and falling, and they're pretty cute to watch because they're not too coordinated yet, so they roll and they fall, and they love playing with each other, and they love trying to all get a piece of the best food, so that's pretty cute. And they also, whenever they're coming up to each other or you're trying to go into the pen to pet them and they don't want to be pet, they'll come over and they'll stamp their feet and they'll growl at you and they think they're pretty tough.
In order to hunt properly, foxes need to learn how to move quickly and stealthily. And their education starts early.
If they were in the wild right now, they would definitely be starting to learn all of their coordination skills, so quick moving, a little bit of stalking, some pouncing, stuff like that. And they would be practicing that on small insects, things that are on the ground. And of course, they would be watching everything their parents do. Small mammals and foxes especially learn a lot from their parents when they're very young. So they're going to be watching their parents, seeing what they're doing, and that's going to be a huge impact for them in terms of learning the skills they'll need later on in life.
Their sharp hearing helps them find their prey and leap directly into the air to kill it. But because they're opportunists, silver foxes can survive on whatever food is available.
Hunting doesn't just mean stalking a mouse in the grass, that means taking an egg if they can find a clutch of eggs on the ground somewhere, things like that. And fox are opportunists, so anything that they can find that will give them that edge, they'll do it.
If it can't locate any meat, the silver fox can survive on plants, worms, and bugs. When it has too much food, it will bury it in the ground for later. If they watch their parents closely and pay attention, these kits should be able to hunt on their own in about 6 months.
Generally, their mother is going to have the strongest impact on the kit's life just because she's around them the most. But both parents are very involved in the upbringing of the fox kits, so both of them will have a huge input in what they will learn and what they'll carry on through later in life and the skills they'll need.
So, with input from Mom and Dad, eventually these little silver foxes will become little hunters. These little hunters are on their way to being big hunters. In the wild, these cubs and pups will be pouncing on prey in no time. Learning the ropes from their parents and the rest of their packs, these creatures are born to hunt.